Mr. Mayor, the YouTube is now live.
All right, I think I'm caught up. Thanks, folks, for the momentary stutter step. I would like to call the Kimberly City Council meeting for Monday, September the 26th to order here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Do we have any late items, Maurice?
There's no late items, Mr. Mayor.
I don't feel so badly. All right, hearing none, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Dallum and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. So just before we go into adoption of the minutes, I want to welcome everybody, both the gallery that we have here in Council Chamber tonight, as well as staff that are attending the meeting for various items on the agenda. And of course, to everybody who is both watching on YouTube tonight and may watch the balance of this week. I understand that many, if not all, of the council candidates are tuning in over this last couple of weeks to our sessions. Welcome, folks. If there's any questions about our process or anything we're talking about here, please call Scott Somerville. Okay, without further ado, I would like a mover to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of August 22nd. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Goodwin seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, the minutes of the special meeting held on September the 12th. Councillor Oakley moves and Councillor Kiddo seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, on to business for the night. First up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw being put forward for 1400 Ross Road. And the motion on the floor is that council approve first reading of bylaw 2721, amendment 157 to the Kimberly zoning bylaw. We'll get into what that's all about in a moment. Councillor Kiddo moves and Councillor McBain seconds. All right, Troy, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll just do a brief introduction and overview of this proposed amendment. And as I had mentioned earlier, the applicant and the representative are also on the phone this evening, and wanted to be able to say a few words about the application, and
Awesome.
Available to answer any questions that council may have for them. So proposed bylaw 2721 will amend the Kimberly zoning bylaw 1850. It's a map amendment. So the lands at 1400 Ross Road, which is part of the lands that were part of the lands in the boundary expansion from 2009 or so, and this will that existing parcel there is part of the original parcel was in the city boundary and part was lying outside the boundary. The city boundary was expanded to engulf the whole property. And what happened with the zoning at that time is the part of the property was already zoned R2. And of course, the part that was outside the city in the regional district had a RR60 zoning applied to it. When we did a review and update to the official community plan in 2017, 2018, the entire parcel was redesignated for future residential development. And now the applicant is ready to move forward in the zoning process and the overall development review process, and is applying to have the R2 zoning apply to the whole parcel. And just for clarification, this parcel is the large parcel that's to the east of the Morrison Sub area, high up on the hillside above Morrison Sub and Kimberly Creek there. There's attached to the staff report is the preliminary neighborhood design and phasing plan that's been provided by the applicant and is largely provided for general information at this point. And certainly if there's any feedback received through the zoning process, that will inform the overall development review. So at this time, we're recommending first reading to initiate that process. We'll be circulating to Ministry of Transportation and other departments and agencies for additional feedback if there's any comments. And I think I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions. And reminder again that the applicants are on the line as well.
All right, excellent, Troy. Thanks for that. Before questions going to council, let's hear from the proponent. Jean, are you going to speak on behalf of Bob?
Yes, I would like to speak, please.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor McCormick, members of council, and city staff. I'm Jean Terpsma. I'm speaking on behalf of TP Developments Limited and Bob and Bobby Seifert, who own the property there. We're very happy to be presenting our rezoning application today. The subject property is approximately 28 hectares in size, and the application is to change the zoning from RR60 Rural Resource Zone to R2, a residential zone within the city of Kimberly. The OCP designation, as Troy said, is designated residential, so we're not applying to change the OCP at this time. We also understand that the R2 zone is potentially being revised under an amending bylaw number 2722 in front of council, and we think that the proposed changes to the R2 zone, if it is adopted, would fit well within our vision for the development of the subject land. The Seiferts and their team have been working extensively with city staff over the past couple of years to bring this application forward. While this proposed rezoning is relatively basic application, much discussion has occurred regarding the proposed residential development. The Seiferts have given the project the name of Headwaters Development, and they've developed a great website providing information to the public with their vision of the development. We believe the proposed Headwaters development will benefit the city and and the community by providing additional housing options in a variety of size and price points, as well as increasing the recreational trail system in Kimberly. The subject property is adjacent to the Lois Creek Trail System, so connections to the trails is an integral part of the proposed development. There's also a possible connection to the Railsea Trail System in the future. The distance for pedestrians to walk from the Headwaters area down to Centennial Center is approximately 700 meters by the road system. And so that's pretty reasonably walkable to the downtown core. The primary road access is proposed from Pearson Road to Ross Road, and then up Ross Road into the property. Robinson Road and Paul Road could potentially provide secondary access, and emergency egress could be through the end of Ross Road to the east towards Meadowbrook and Crown Land in the case of a big emergency situation. Details of the road design, lot layout, and servicing will be dealt with during the development permit and subdivision application stage should this rezoning be successful. Our professional engineer, Pierre Mulick, has provided detailed information to the city's engineering department and will continue to work with staff to finalize all servicing requirements for water and sanitary sewer, as well as storm and electricity and everything else. As you all know, Kimberly is rapidly growing and the housing shortage has been challenging. The proposed Headwaters development could help to alleviate some of the housing issues and provide a desirable neighborhood while meeting the city's goals of encouraging a healthy, active lifestyle. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Awesome, Jean. Thank you very much. Council, questions or comments? Councillor Oakley, go ahead. Hang on, I'll shut. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Troy, just around the timelines. When you apply to Ministry of Highways for more information from them, what are you anticipating the timeline? So prior to working with the public, so public open, a public process where the neighborhood, Morrison Sub, for example, would eventually want to come to some kind of a process. Are we talking months? For highways, for anything, feedback from them?
Could potentially be. I can't really speak for their kind of workload right now, but it'll be probably a few weeks. I think it would at least before we hear. But I think they, they'll be as quick as possible, and we'll wait to hear from them before providing further comment to that regard.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering what if this would go, how fast this would go through this stage.
Yeah. I mean, if we hear back from them, we could be back to the next meeting for second reading and scheduling a public hearing. But if we don't hear back from them, then we'll.
Okay. Can I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
So another question I have around this is, do you have any preliminary idea on infrastructure needed for when water and sewer go up and down that hillside? Is there a pressure station needed down below, or what's required there?
I don't know if I'm the best to speak to those details, but there's certainly been some back and forth between our engineering department and the project engineer as well. And there's certainly some challenges with having to extend services into the site there. But I think there's some options to consider there, and we'll confirm those through the subsequent subdivision and development permit applications.
So any numbers associated with that would come to the open house when you're doing the feedback with public?
I would say it's unlikely we'll have any hard details or numbers about that prior to public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as a reminder, at the zoning stage, levels of detail are very broad. Thanks for that, Councillor Oakley. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, I have some real concerns about this development. In the staff report, there's a whole list of clauses from the official community plan that are in conflict with this kind of development. Back in 2009, when the city expanded the boundaries, I thought that was a very poor idea, both for this area and for Taylor's Mill. And I've actually mentioned a couple of times we should rescind that decision and let these areas go back into the regional district. I think the cost of maintaining services and sending snowplows and garbage pickup and whatnot into this neighborhood is going to end up costing taxpayers in Kimberly, that there won't be a net benefit to the city coffers in the long run from this. It's a fringe development, and it's not the kind of development I think we should be supporting. And it's probably best to sort of end it quick, soon, rather than spend months and years of staff time and council time and the public's time digging into the details and then finding out that it's really not such a good idea. So that's my position. So
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Further. Go ahead, Councillor Dallin.
I'm not fond of the dead ends, but otherwise I think that this should be considered in the process. Those details about cost, benefit, and those analysis, we're only going to find out about them by looking. So perhaps we can get the ball rolling a little bit and see if there is anything that is of concern.
Thank you for that. Further? Councillor McBain, then Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of pile onto what Kyle was saying there, I think, just recognizing from, the broader perspective, we do have a housing problem. And I realize, there are other areas in town that are currently under development, whether it's Sullivan Landing or areas in Marysville and Forest Crown. But I kind of agree with Kyle. I mean, it would be, I'd like to see the ball roll a little bit to understand a little bit better what kind of potential a development like this would have before I would pump the brakes on it. So.
All right, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Well, I still of coming to the point tonight, we're looking at changing the R60 and changing it to the zoning for residential. I think that if we're going to keep this inside of the city limits the way it has been, that there's nothing to be harmed by changing it from RR60 to zone it to 2. However, I cannot see a time in the future when we want to give this back to the regional district, when in fact we're a town that's 3 blocks wide and 3 miles long, looking for space to build things, looking for opportunities to help ourselves grow further, and looking for to our engineers to make this efficiently doable. I think I'm not sure that I agree with the fact that it's going to cost us more to move the water and plow the snow than it is to amount of tax that we're going to get for the various properties. I'm not sure that I agree with that, and I'm not going to agree with it until I actually see the numbers. And we're not going to see the numbers unless we get rid of the R60. And so I'd like to move forward on that part.
All right, thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Kittle.
This has been a project that's been very long in the making, ever since the city boundaries were expanded in 2009. I know it's a local family who has Kimberly near and dear to their hearts. I think they are very sensitive into what Kimberly might need in the future. So I think, a local landowner working with and having all those things in mind is a pretty good thing for Kimberly.
Thanks, Councillor Kittle. Anything further? So I would like to add a couple of comments. And really, at the end of the day, what we have is private land inside of Kimberly, owned by, obviously, private land, a private individual. And we have a process for dealing with proposals that come forward from private landowners here in Kimberly. It's a well-known process. It's iterative. And our planning department negotiates with all proponents on all proposals to try and make the best fit possible for a particular development within the boundaries of the city of Kimberly. And I agree with a couple of the other councillors here that we'd be doing it a disservice if we did not follow the process that we have in place to make that happen. Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Goodwin is opposed. The motion is carried. Having a little bit of trouble with my iPad this evening. Just bear with me here. The second item tonight is 1.2, which is the City of Kimberly Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw for consideration of first 3 readings. And that would be the motion on the floor, is that council give first, second, and third reading to this bylaw. Councillor Oakley moves and Councillor Dallum seconds. Discussion. Jim.
I can speak to this here.
I wasn't sure whether you were online, you're here.
Yeah, hiding back in the corner here.
These hybrid meetings are difficult to chair. Go right ahead, Jim, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to request council's consideration of applications received from the Kimberly Healthcare Auxiliary and Healthy Kimberly under the Kimberly Wellness Foundation for permissive tax exemptions related to spaces that these organizations are currently leasing in the Kimberly Health Center. The space being leased by the which one is it? Kimberly Healthcare Foundation or Kimberly Healthcare Auxiliary is for the purpose of operating a medical loan cupboard, and the space being leased by Healthy Kimberly is being used for the purpose of food recovery program. Council does have a permissive tax exemption policy that guides decisions based on these. I have attached that to the report for council's consideration. The property tax that would be foregone by council granting these exemptions is approximately $1,956 for the Kimberly Healthcare Auxiliary space and $3,375 for Healthy Kimberly. The exemption being proposed at this time is for 1 year only, that being 2023. And the purpose of that is to coincide with the other exemptions that council provided to a number of not-for-profit organizations for a period of 4 years in 2019. Those also expire in 2023. So it's just to set those expiry dates up so that they align the next time around. So if council is agreeable with providing tax exemptions for these in relation to these applications, the bylaw must be read 3 times and eventually adopted by council.
All right, thanks, Jim. Council, questions or comments? Councillor Dallin, go ahead.
I'm in favor of this. I've used the loan cupboard, and I also see a growing need for the food recovery on both ends. You know, the input and the output are both very valuable, and I believe that supporting these strengthens the community. And with the food recovery branching off into other say tendrils of that industry, I see that being a growing need. So that's why I want to support these groups.
Thanks, Councillor. Further? So I had asked the question on this earlier. What seemed a little bit unusual, only because I didn't know, I suppose, was that neither of these organizations actually own real property. They are renting or leasing space from the hospital society. And so kind of what we're trying to do here now is to provide that exemption to the hospital society, not to these organizations, but to the hospital society, who then has an opportunity to reduce the rents to both of these organizations back to something that is, you know, the best it can be. Anything further to add on that, Jim?
No, I thank you for that, Mr. Mayor, because it's a bit of a different situation in comparison to the other permissive exemptions we've got. So,
Right.
yeah, nothing further.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the zoning amendment bylaw 2722, which is the housing densification bylaw. So the motion on the floor is that council adopt the bylaw. We've been through this through several meetings now, several discussion stages, and we're at the point of adoption. Could I have a mover? Councillor Goodwin, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. Any further discussion from planning?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. No, I think as you mentioned, we've been through this several times. The only addition to this report is the final approval from MODI, from the Ministry of Transportation, which they had previously given preliminary approval, but just following the course of the required process on this, they have provided that now, and all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Justin. Council, further? Councillor Oakley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the massive amount of work that planning has put into this. Thank you guys very much. So the feedback that I'm providing tonight is come from quite a few conversations with various people now that this has gone out and people are becoming more and more familiar with it. And to summarize the conversations is cautious acceptance. And I've heard from some people to remind City Hall to please use common sense when implementing this bylaw. So I think it's overall pretty good, but people are cautiously optimistic that this is going to help out a bit. So that's my feedback.
That's awesome. I may have a vested interest in this, but I think common sense has been a hallmark of this council for the last 4 years, and I appreciate the reminder on the part of the residents in Kimberly. Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up we have the 5-year financial plan bylaw amendment, which has a number of pieces to it that Jim will talk to in a moment. The motion on the floor is that council rescind third reading of the financial plan. Let's do that first. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Kiddo seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And the motion on the floor now is that council directs staff to amend the 5-year financial plan bylaw based on the the items in the report. It's fairly lengthy and I won't bother reading it all out, but we'll talk to it all in a moment. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Kiddo, thank you. And Councillor Goodwin seconds. All right, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the adoption of the current 2022 to 2026 five-year financial plan bylaw in May of this year, there have been some new and or better information has become available, which has resulted in changes to some of the previously approved budget amounts, and the opportunity to complete some additional projects during this current five-year planning period. The section 165 2 of the community charter permits amendments to the financial plan bylaw at any time. Staff requests that council consider granting 3 readings and eventual adoption to the bylaw to approve the proposed changes. At the August 22nd, 22 regular meeting, council did provide first 3 readings to bylaw 2725, which is the amendments. And in the time since then, that bylaw, when it was presented, indicated that one of the proposed changes, which was the inclusion of the GIS system replacement project, not proceed. That was a grant-funded project. A portion of it was to be funded from grants. We had found out at that time that the grant had not been approved, so that was removed from the amendment as presented to council at that August 22nd meeting. Since that time, both the project manager and the manager of planning have come forward and requested that that project proceed in the absence of that grant funding. So what we're asking council to do at this meeting is to rescind 3rd reading of that bylaw in order to allow the bylaw to be amended at 2nd reading to include that GIS system replacement project for a cost of $60,000, with the full cost of that being funded from reserves as opposed to a portion of it being funded from the grants. And the last part of the motion is that council reread the bylaw as amended. So it would include that GIS system replacement project. I believe Shane's on the line here and Troy's here as well if there's any questions about why that request was made. We just had our GIS position. We filled that. I believe that Mackenzie started this past Monday. So that was one of the key pieces in getting this new system in. So yeah, if council approves this, the bylaw will be brought back for adoption on October 11th, and then we'll proceed with the system upgrade.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. I recall the conversation we had the last time around this. Getting the GIS system upgraded is it's a serious productivity tool for staff, and the benefit far outweighs the $60,000 that it's going to cost to get this in place. We did have that conversation last time, and I'm assuming, Troy, nothing has changed in that time. Yeah, cool. Council, questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the last part of this piece is that council reread the bylaw, the 5-year financial plan bylaw, as a 3rd time, for a 3rd time as amended. So we have rescinded 3rd reading, and now we're going back as amended with 3rd reading again. Councillor Roberts moves, Councillor Dallum seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Excellent.
Thank you, council.
All right, next up, we have a development variance permit for 655 Bryant Boulevard. And the motion on the floor is that council approve this development variance permit as outlined in the report and the motion. Mover, please. Councillor Goodwin, thank you. And Councillor Kiddo seconds. Discussion. Troy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council recall this was discussed at the last meeting and council approved giving notice to adjacent property owners and residents. Staff followed that direction and did issue notice. No other feedback has been received from any neighbors. We'll remind council that there was 2 letters of support submitted with the original application there. So I guess in some ways, no surprise that we haven't heard any other comments there. So staff recommends that council approve this development variance permit, and that'll allow them to get moving with their building permit application and proceed to construct the attached garage there.
All right, excellent. Council, any questions? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have a development variance permit for 2640 Warren Avenue, which for council's reference is the pardon? Oh, Trail Street, okay. We didn't do a mover yet there, did we? All right, we'll take one step back and we will look after Trail Street first. It's a development variance permit for 530 Trail. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Kiddo, seconds. This is another one that we've had conversation on, and the motion on the floor is approval. Any further discussion, guys?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The application was considered by council during last meetings for the notice to be sent out. We have not received any further correspondence on this application. And just to remind council, it is for the extension of a roof on an existing structure that it is within the setback and within a bit of an encroachment situation.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin. Council, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Now we get to the DVP for 2640 Warren Avenue. This is the trailer park down kind of in the down below where the Western Lodge is, down in behind the old Travel Air, for reference for council. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Kiddo moves and Councillor McBain seconds. And just to be clear, the motion on the floor that you have moved is that council instruct the corporate officer to issue notice to neighbors. All right, go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so there was an application, actually this application and the next application up on the agenda here from the owners or the proponents at the trailer park there to site a new trailer on the property. And that is within the setback area that's required between buildings. So within the R5 zone and specifically within the trailer park here, there is a requirement to have buildings at a certain distance from each other as opposed to from property, or in addition to from property lines. And the sites that they have asked to site a new trailer don't otherwise permit a trailer to be sited there. They're a little bit too close otherwise. However, we have worked with the applicant to make sure that the distance between the trailers is reasonable.
All right, excellent. Questions, council? Go ahead, Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, feedback from Fire Chief?
We have not asked the fire chief directly, but we have worked with the building department to make sure that it does meet limiting distance standards. And that is a standard within the building code that sets buildings far enough apart to ensure that there is, I guess, safety given towards fire considerations and the spread of fire.
Thank you.
Okay. Further? Right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the next one up is the DVP for the same location, different site, and it is to instruct the corporate officer to issue notice to neighbors. A mover, please. Councillor Dallum, thank you very much. And Councillor McBain seconds. Further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor.
So since we're issuing notice to neighbors and this will come back to a future meeting, it would make me feel good if you could just run this past the fire chief and the fire department, both of these, and just bring those assurances with you, and then we'll move forward. But I will vote for this right now. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Councillor Goodwin. Note point taken by staff. Further comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have another development variance permit, this time for 440 Deer Park Avenue. This would be over on, I guess, the west side of Ross Street, near the creek. It would be one of the properties near Mark Creek, I believe. Yeah. Could I have a mover, please? Well, the motion on the floor is again to instruct corporate officer to issue notice to neighbors. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you, and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any discussion on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the applicant is proposing a two-family dwelling on the lot, and the lot is, as you come down Deer Park Avenue from the insurance business there at the top of the hill, it's right along the corner. And they have asked for a variance to the size of parcel required to site a two-family dwelling from 316 meters squared to, from 650 meters squared down to 334 meters squared, and to decrease the required exterior side yard setback, which is the side which these two-family dwelling will face onto Deer Park Avenue. From 3 meters by 2.7 meters to 0.3 meters. We're also in discussion with the applicant to possibly do a land trade deal in the future, but that will be up to council to ensure that there is a visibility at the corner there for traffic, as that it has been identified by the engineering department as a problem area. And we just want to make sure that visibility is maintained and that pedestrian or vehicle safety is ensured.
And
Further.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just add some further clarification. So this area is just for further reference across the creek from the Bohemian Distillery area there. So it's part of the reconfigured access road into those properties on the other side of the creek after the Mark Creek rehabilitation project there. So yeah, what Justin alluded to there is there's a bend in the road there that we can aid just flow of traffic and snow removal and all that sort of stuff if there's a bit of a reconfiguration of parcels lines there. But the application as proposed and considered right now is recognizing the existing arrangement of the parcel, and we'll continue to work with the applicant on the potential to do a bit of a land exchange there to reconfigure that. But there'll be further information coming back to council on a separate report on that when we have a few more details ironed out to propose. So.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, Troy and Justin. I guess quick question. The lot next door, 430, is that a privately owned lot as well? It's the property that the road cuts across on that turn.
Sorry, did you say 430?
430.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the map there where there's the yellow outlined parcel
Yeah.
of 440, that's the subject parcel.
Yeah.
And the city is the owner of the other three parcels, 430, 410, and 400.
Okay.
And that's part of the parcel line reconfiguration that we're reviewing right now. And
All right,
and we have a
perfect.
proposal for council.
Thank you.
You bet.
Councillor Oakley?
I'd just like to comment, when I was reading through this, this to me is an excellent example of creative densification. It's a really, I think it's a great use of this piece of land. And, they face out onto a beautiful park. I mean, that's a great thing there. A great use of the land, I think. And you're getting a couple families there possibly. So anyway, I'm really happy to see it.
Comments. Yeah, excellent. Thank you for those comments. Okay, further? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Pardon me. Next up, under new business, we have the British Columbia Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant, and the motion on the floor is that council direct staff to develop and submit a grant application to the Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program for the completion of a sidewalk on 309th in Marysville. We'll get more details on that in a moment. And the second motion we'll do as a second motion. So mover, please. Councillor Kiddo, thank you. And Councillor Dallum seconds. Which one of you is going to take this? Shane?
Yeah, Shane
Take-
can do the technicality.
Take it away, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Yeah, so as the report says, we're looking to apply for a grant to add about 250 meters of curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the frontage of Marysville School. This would also include some storm drainage upgrades and some traffic calming, and would end with a safer tie-in to the highway crossing that goes over to the Marysville Arena. And yeah, this project aligns with our with the city's active transportation network plan. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
So where exactly would the sidewalks start and end?
Yeah, so the sidewalk would start on the north side. It would start at the highway, and it would go along the frontage of the school, tying in to the sidewalk at the south end of the school property, pretty much running the entirety of the school property.
Okay, excellent. So there won't be an impact on the crosswalk at this point, just kind of safer travel from the crosswalk to the school.
Yes, that's correct. And then as part of the project, we'll be upgrading the entrance to the crosswalk that connects the school to 306th Street.
All right, thank you. Council, further? Councillor Oakley, go ahead.
So I guess, you know, I support this. Obviously, it's very important to have this built up there just for safety. I'm curious, either Pam or Shane, if this does not go through, is there a plan B for that area? How that might be approached? And I guess just one comment. You know, when you do the math, if you round up, $1,800 a meter. It's like $1,800 a meter. Holy moly. Yeah, okay. A meter. That's just, wow, it's so expensive. That just absolutely is mind boggling. But luckily 70% of it is a grant. But anyway, I'm just wondering if the grant doesn't get accepted, is there anything alternative in terms of safety features that we can support?
Shane?
Yeah, so at this point in the 5-year plan, if we don't get this grant, there aren't other options in this corridor that we've looked at this time. But there are definitely improvements that we could look at. I think we'd also be looking at continuing to apply for additional grants in the future. I think looking at like a long-term plan here, putting long-term like curb, gutter, and sidewalk is probably the best way to improve the active transportation network in this area.
What has our experience been with active transportation grants? I know we've applied and been successful on at least one that I know of. Do you have a sense of that, Shane?
Yeah, well, and we just completed a very similar project up on 7th Avenue for the other elementary school in town. And it was a very successful project, including similar curb, gutter, sidewalk, and improvements to some of the intersections of the crosswalks up there. And since this is a similar scope, I would assume we have a good opportunity here, a good chance of getting this grant.
Yeah, so that's the sidewalk basically from the school down to Trail Street.
Yes, that's correct. That
Yeah.
project was the sidewalk from the school to Trail Street, and then the pathway along Giegridge Park over to 4th Avenue.
Right. Yeah, awesome project. Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. Council, further questions? Call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the second part of the of this new business is that council directs staff to include in year one the works to complete this project, 70% of which will be covered by the grant, 30% will be funded from general operating capital reserve. Mover, please. Councillor Dallum moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, next up, we have actually 3 check runs. And it's that the City of Kimberly check runs in the total amount of $2,572,925 be approved as paid. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Do we have any discussion? Anything beyond routines on this one, Councillor Roberts? I assume project payments?
The biggest chunk is project payments, right?
Yeah. All right. Further questions, Council? All those in favor? That motion is carried. We have 4 items of correspondence to receive this evening. Mover, please. Councillor Kiddo moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Anything of note for discussion? Councillor Roberts, or Councillor Oakley. My apologies, Sandra.
I'm just curious if somebody can answer. I think I'm not sure who responded to this before around the pickleball noise. It might have been Jim. We were trying to get at one point a sound barrier. Oh, Nicole, was it Nicole? Then there were some funding issues. It was a while back. Anyway, I'm just wondering, is there an update on that? What the status is on that?
Yeah, as referred to in the letter, we do have it budgeted for next year for some sound mitigation installments. Yeah. And yes, we have seen this this issue pop up once before.
Yeah, and I believe, Scott, you had responded to the letter writer, you know, with a good level of detail on what's happening. So, all right. Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Dallum.
Just the letter regarding Canadian Forces medics to supplement the healthcare system. This is something a lot like the food security issue that the fragility of our system at this time is really showing the strain. I actually, I know someone who went to the doctor and the doctor let them know before he came in to run the water so it was hot when he got in, so they'd have time to do the things as condensed as possible. This is the reality we're at right now. The changes at our local clinic with regards to who they can see and that sort of thing. So I guess with the cautionary tale of just telling folks to be safe, don't use the system any more than you need to at this time.
All right, thanks for that, Councillor Dallum. Further comment, Council? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question on receipt of the correspondence. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. All right, that is the end of the regular agenda this evening. We do not have an in-camera tonight, but we will pose question period. And also, while we're waiting to hear if anybody has got any questions, we'll go through council items. So anybody watching this evening, if you have any questions or comments with regard to anything that you've heard in the meeting this evening, you can call 800-741-7180. And when prompted, meeting number 2493-527-7113. And there will be folks on the line waiting to receive your call on anything that you have heard in the meeting this evening. Gallery, was there anything? No? All right, awesome. So while we're waiting to hear if anybody calls in, let's run through our council items. Sandra, you want to start off?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We haven't had a meeting. In fact, we're due to have a meeting for the nature park later in this week, but over the last period of time since we've had a meeting, there has been a little bit of discussion, I guess is the best way of putting it, formulating a letter after all was said and done. There is a private organization who has decided to apply for a letter of occupation of the lands that comprise the nature park area, as well as that same forest in Creston, Cranbrook, and another group of another area. I'm not sure whether it's a forest or whatever in Fernie. This is a commercial group who hopes to do therapy or whatever in those land areas. The nature park people have gone about the business of forming a letter to the ministry indicating their concern about that, and the fact that the city of Kimberly already does hold a letter of occupation, a license of occupation on that property, and there is has been a timeline for the information to be provided to the ministry, and so we'll be waiting to hear what the ministry has to say. I'm not just sure how much Scott and the city have been involved in it to date, but at the get-go, the ministry did not inform or recognize that the city of Kimberly did in fact hold a license of occupation. So we've managed to get that part sorted out so that they're certainly aware of that. We'll see where it all falls out.
All right, thank you for that. So this is referral period for whatever application they have put in.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No, that was it.
All right, well, we'll keep very close tabs on that one. Thanks for that, Sandra. Nigel.
Well, hopefully the stewardship that the Nature Park Society has shown over the last however many years speaks for itself. For me, Tourism Kimberley meeting was postponed until Wednesday, unfortunately due to illness. So we'll be meeting on Wednesday night. And other than that, just some informal meetings with some potential new councillors. There's some pretty strong candidates out there and some very community-minded people out there. It's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nigel. Kyle.
So, a few things. I mean, everyone are in the room and looking has likely seen the amount of bicycle traffic with the events. This last month has been incredibly busy with cycling events as well as Center 64 events, including an early Oktoberfest. Center 64 is also getting a ceramics agreement happening, so there could be some programming that way pretty soon. It's quite mind-boggling the effect of these volunteers, you know, and the amount of effort that they put in and the amount of enrichment that they put out. So I just want to say thank you to anybody that takes time to do a little bit more than they need to. And really looking, there's a few things in the works, especially with Center 64 that looking forward to seeing what happens. They've got their roof completion in sight with the theater going to be back up and running this fall. So that'll be really exciting to have some programming there. And yeah, I'll just turn it over for now.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things I should mention. One, I just got an email tonight about a possible meeting of the KCDS tomorrow evening, which you two may have also gotten, as that group attempts to finalize the winding down of it. So a meeting tomorrow to formally approve the audited statements, and then probably another meeting in a few weeks to do the winding up forms and paperwork that needs to go to the government to wind it down. So that's one thing that's happening. And the other thing is, last week we did have a health center society meeting. We actually had two. We had a regular monthly meeting and our AGM. The AGM is mostly a formality to approve the financials and do the things you need to do to satisfy the government that you're still functioning. One big piece of news at that meeting, Derm Kennedy announced his intention to step down off the board. He's been on the board since the society was formed, when the after the hospital closed, and he's certainly done a long service to the organization. We will be looking again for new directors. So if you know of anyone who has an interest in health services in Kimberley, please let us know. The health center will be applying once again for a community grant to the city to defray our audit costs. We only have to pay for an audit because the city requires that we get audited, and that costs us about $8,000 every year, and we would much rather put that money into the building. So we are going to once again apply, and it will be up to council of the day to decide whether we get any of that. We are also applying for grants from Etsy and from the Vancouver Foundation, larger grants to try to defray some of our costs. We are in the process of renewing leases with some of our tenants. One of our spaces has recently become vacant. A lease we thought was going to be renewed was not. And so we will be advertising some commercial space for lease in the next month or two. We have to do some cleanup and get things ready for that. What else? We have Interior Health is interested in some new space in the building, and they're looking at renovating a couple of small spaces in the basement. They were not interested in the large space that has become available, but they are still interested in having a bit more space. And yeah, we are meeting soon with the Division of Family Practice and the East Kootenay Foundation for Health to talk about a possible fundraising campaign to raise funds to renovate the building and get that upper floor, which has been empty since the hospital closed, up to code and ready to occupy again. And I'm not sure where that's going to go, but it could lead to something fairly major. And we're also exploring the community health center concept with a provincial network of groups where there are community health centers, which is a particular kind of health center defined partly by the province in various communities around the province. And we are looking at that model, and we'll be talking in the future about whether to adopt it or not. So if there are people interested in being on the board of the Kimberly Health Center Society, there's a lot of exciting stuff just around the corner, and we could sure use a few. So there you go.
Thanks for that, Kent. Great update. I assume you are staying on for another term on the board.
I am staying on for a while on the board. So I was originally appointed quite a long time ago by the mayor. And I will no longer be a city councillor. And so I'm not leaving when my term on council ends, but I do have other projects I would like to focus on. And I'm hoping that if we can build a new board and get some new direction, I will be able to step aside sometime in the next year, perhaps.
Right.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Daryl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items. The campus of health that Councillor Goodwin was just chatting about. I've had some conversation with various folks that have come forward and wanted to talk about that. I think it's extremely exciting to go forward with the Health Center Society and possibly incorporate Cominco Gardens into that campus of health, and some very interesting, innovative ideas with those folks. So I'm actually quite excited to hear that some of where they're going and the conversations that are happening. And obviously it's coming, it'll be coming soon to the community level, these conversations. So anyway, the other item is the railroad. They are needing to make sure that they have high levels of grant success. So they have been putting tremendous pressure on me to make sure I identify a possible new liaison who will be a new council member. And of course, who knows who's going to be elected. So I told them to pay attention to the election. So the other thing is, one final item is we're doing a pilot project in the nature park with Interface. As you know, they bring up firewood, removing fiber from salvaged fiber from the nature park. So through the Seniors Helping Seniors, we've identified some seniors that actually need the wood for heating. And we're working to get some truckloads to those folks that could not get in there and get that.
All right, nice.
So I'll let you know how that, I think it's going to go well. We even had one 84-year-old senior who happily accepts 2 loads of wood and demanded that he needed to split it. He wanted just the rounds. Anyway, that's my report.
Thanks for that, Daryl. Kent, did you have something to add? Better thoughts? Okay, no problem. Jason?
Nothing major to add. I've been out of town for quite a bit. I'll be out of town for quite a bit moving forward here too. We had a library meeting this week that I could call in. I was on the East Coast, so I didn't have much of an opportunity to do much else from back here, but I did have an opportunity to call in for that. Relatively business as usual, nothing major to report on.
All right.
That's it. I'm tired and I'm going to leave it at that.
So I've got, I'll just provide a few highlights here of the last, I guess this is probably 3 weeks since the last regular meeting. I noticed that neither Councillor Roberts nor Councillor McBain mentioned that nomination period closed and you had both submitted papers to run again for council. I'm not sure why you forgot that as a councillor item over the last couple of weeks, but it's a fairly important milestone. I had an opportunity to meet with Destination BC here in Kimberly. They were doing a bit of a roadshow through the communities out here in the east and west Kootenays, and had a chance to sit down and talk a little bit about Kimberly, kind of what our needs on the tourism side were, basically to educate them. We don't get folks from DBC coming out here very often, and they were, I think, both appreciative, but also, I think, pleasantly surprised at the, for a small community, at the level of sophistication we've got with our tourism product here in Kimberly. It was actually a really good meeting. I had the opportunity at the end of Kaleidoscope to attend the Arts Gala and basically say thanks to all the winners of awards through that week, the artists, but also to the Arts Council in general, who have just done an absolute awesome job again over the course of this year. I guess technically Kaleidoscope is not only the end of kind of the summer season with respect to festivals, but also with the AGM happening, it's the end of the art season as well. New season to start. They're doing an awesome job. I mentioned the nomination papers. I also had an opportunity to provide a welcome and some words of encouragement for the new fire training class that started here a couple of weeks ago. We've got 17 new recruits that are being trained by our fire department, led by Jack Patterson, on behalf of the College of the Rockies. And it's always interesting to see who comes in and kind of reasons why they're in here for the fire. This is basic fire training, and it's a pretty good group. That's 17 of them that are sitting through this particular class. I had regional district meetings for a couple of days, week before last. Actually, it was 3 days, I believe, this time around. I had a chance to go to the food bank. The food bank put on a barbecue for all of the volunteers, and it was over at the new building. And anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to literally drop in at the old Equicare garage, it has been transformed into the new food bank. And I got to tell you, Dexter and Barry and Tom and the rest of the folks over at the food bank are doing just an incredible job. I could not believe that was Equicare at one point in time. If you get an opportunity to just drop in and say hello, I think the folks over there would appreciate it. It's not open yet. It's not going to be opening for another pardon me, month or two. But stopping in to see progress would be a great thing. I participated in the first interior health call for mayors and chairs in a while. IH continue to do calls. I think they're pretty much on a monthly basis now, with updates on what's happening around the region. The focus has still been more or less on COVID and the continuing immunization efforts, et cetera. But the conversations are becoming a little more widespread with some of the other health issues that we have in the community. I think I forwarded the report that came out of that to council. I also had an opportunity to do a welcome at the mining reclamation symposium that happened here last Wednesday night. It is so awesome to have these events coming back to the conference center again. There was 160 delegates here for the week. I think it's actually Tuesday to Friday. And they, for the conference, they also have another 100 to 150 online. They're doing a hybrid version. So they had somewhere between 250 and 300 folks online for this particular symposium. And as I said, it is incredible to have the conference center back up and running again. I was at kind of this last Thursday through Saturday, I was at the Columbia Basin Trust Board meeting. As you know, I sit on that board. And I want to bring it up as an item because CBT is doing its redoing its Columbia Basin Management Plan, which is basically the strategic priorities on how the CBT money is spent. If anybody attended the AGM that was on Thursday, you will know that approximately $83 million went into the basin for something like 73 programs and 2,500 projects. The impact that CBT continues to have on the basin is pretty phenomenal. The point I'm getting to is that come April through for probably 2 or 3 or 4 months, CBT is heading out into the majority of communities in the basin, including Kimberly. We will be one of the first communities that they will be hitting in the early part of April, and it will be an opportunity for anybody and everybody in the community to come out and provide input on where we feel money should be spent over the next CBMP. It's going to be for longer than 5 years this time. 5 years is just not a very long period of time. It passes very quickly, especially when the processes we have in place to kind of monitor all of this are taken into account. So it's going to be for a longer period of time, and therefore most important for the community to get out and provide feedback on what's working, what isn't, and the latest opportunities that we see. Yeah, I think that's it. The last comment I will make is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott or Maurice, but we have one more regular council meeting left on October the 11th, I believe it is. Last regular council meeting for this council. And I look forward to not only us attending that, but hopefully we have a whole pile of people from the public attending for that last meeting as well. Okay, with that, Scott, was there anything that you wanted to add from a staff point of view?
I just wanted to add the reconciliation walk is happening at
Friday.
1:15 on Friday. We're all meeting at Civic Arena and walking up to the Platzel. Chief Joe is going to give a presentation to the crowd within the Platzel.
At the Platzel?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what time was that again?
1:15 and leaving Civic Center at 1:30.
Okay, awesome. We'll further get the word out on that. Thanks for that addition. Okay, hearing nothing else, that's it.
Mr.
Maurice.
Mayor, do you want to remind people that the candidate forum is on October 3rd, next Monday?
So is that Monday?
It is next
So Monday, October the 3rd is the All Candidates Forum at McKim. Both council candidates as well as trustee candidates will be at that forum, making short pitches on why they should be voted for, and also answering a number of questions that have come up that the chamber will be posing to both. So that's Monday, October the 3rd, this Monday coming up, like a week from today. Anything else? Seems to me there may be another event, October the 15th. It's the election day. So for those or anybody who will not be here or unable to vote in person on the 15th, we have 2 advanced polling dates. Help me out, Maurice.
Wednesday, October 5th and Wednesday, October 12th. We also have mail ballots available. The mail ballot application is on the website, and according to the legislation, it's now available to everybody.
Go ahead, Scott.
Separate item.
Okay. When you say not available to everybody, what does that mean?
It is available to everybody.
Oh, it is available to everyone. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So there's no excuse to not getting out and vote. we have advanced polls, we have mail-in, and we have election day on the 15th. So we hope to, Kimberly typically has a higher turnout than any of the other communities out here in the Kootenays. I think in the area of 55% sounds about right.
So in 2018, Kimberly was 49%, Cranbrook was 26, but Fernie was 62. So I think the best small town in BC should really get out
Step
and
it up.
vote.
Thanks for that motivational speech, Maurice. Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that the pre-election, the early voting places at Centennial Hall, where the election itself will be held at McKim.
Actually, that's a great point. We've always had the polling station at Centennial. This year it's at McKim on voting day. Yeah, thanks for that. Scott, go ahead.
One last item.
Please.
Wednesday at 7 o'clock here at City Hall, we'll be having an open house forum regarding the wastewater treatment plant and the proposed borrowing question on the referendum. Come one, come all.
So this is an information session to update on what we're proposing, the financing, et cetera.
Yeah, we're taking probably 20 years worth of planning and putting it together and doing one presentation
All right.
before the referendum.
All right, awesome. That was actually the other event that I had in the back of my mind. It's on the ballot. We're going for elector assent. There is really not a lot of option for us not replacing this plant, but it's important because of the amount of money involved, that the electorate understands what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how we intend to pay for it. So we'll be talking about all of those items on the 28th. All right, excellent. Last call. Move to adjourn. Councillor Oakley, thank you. And Councillor Goodwin seconds. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, folks. Good meeting.